Hey friends, this is Jenny with Gardening with Creekside, and today we have a very special guest, none other than Mr. Jim Putnam of HortTube. So welcome to Creekside Nursery.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. I've watched a lot of your videos. And
so this is just like a kind of a surreal moment though, because when we first got started, I don't even know that we were even in YouTube yet, and we had some customers of ours going, have you heard about this guy, Jim? From Raleigh. So anyway, this is just it's an honor to have you here. So thank you so much for coming. And
well, thank you for welcoming me.
And we've already been visiting for, gosh, at least an hour already.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have a really kind of informal, just a chit chat between the two of us, because I think it's always fun to you see us when we're talking about plants and information and throwing all that out, but just to see the person behind it.
Yeah.
And so you were just telling me though, because you live in Raleigh, and you live in an 80-year-old house.
I do, yes.
And so you have, in the past couple of years though, like you moved, and so you've had to start your landscape from scratch.
Yeah, and I moved from a suburban area that was, Raleigh and Charlotte are very similar. You guys are in the Charlotte suburbs. I was in the Raleigh suburbs for about 25 years, but I grew up in the city of Raleigh. My suburban lot was near over an acre.
Gotcha.
Plus I had the nursery to landscape and a garden center to landscape. And I've moved to 2/10 of an acre in an urban space. and then within 12 months, running out of space to put things.
I know, right. So that's a challenge for you, is that you now have to be really selective about what you put in there.
I do. I absolutely have to love the plant now that I'm purchasing. At first I was kind of, and everything has to go upright and narrow. Nothing can go this way anymore.
It covers too much area. It's got to go vertical, not horizontal.
Right. So I'm considering tree forming anything now. You know, just to have little round balls on sticks. That's my next layer of landscaping.
I love it. I love it. So you mentioned that you did have a nursery and you were landscaping. So give us a little bit, in case somebody doesn't know you and doesn't know your story, because you are just, and I'll tell you this. So when Jerry and I, whenever we find a new plant for us, or we want to know more information, guess where we go?
Well, good.
Good. Tell us about this plant. Yeah. So kind of tell us like how your story with landscaping, horticulture.
Okay.
Just give us a little backstory.
Okay. Well, if you count just my time in horticulture, I started when I was 16 at a garden center in North Raleigh called Rake and Hoe, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was a beautiful high-end retail place. But before that, I had prime tobacco. I was an involuntary worker on a family farm in the summertime, priming tobacco. For those of you who don't know, we used to have to do things by hand on farms. And so I grew up doing that. And then, so I had the garden center, and then I worked at the garden center. Then I went out working for other landscapers, and then I started my own landscape company, became a North Carolina certified landscape contractor. Then I had the crazy idea of starting to grow plants, which, I don't know, maybe I should back up in time on that one. And so I had the nursery, and then I at one time had 3 retail places.
Wow. All
of those are gone, and now I visit Creekside and other places and other nurseries.
But it's really cool, because we were talking, and you have just gotten plugged in so much to all the breeders and knowing all the different things that are coming along, which is really interesting, and it's really helpful, for gardeners and nurserymen like us, who you just seem to have the inside scoop on that kind of stuff, which is really fun and informative. And helpful.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I mean, when I travel now, I go to wholesale nurseries, and I hope to help them, finding new plants to grow. I occasionally find new things that, as I travel around too, that I hope to help people bring to market. And I just have a love of all parts of it, and I'm super fascinated with plant breeding and plant breeders, and it's a very small group of people in the United States that brings all of these super interesting plants to us.
Right.
And they're like I say, they're all interesting folks.
Well, and it was really neat just talking to you about how there is just that handful of breeders who are responsible for so many great plants. I mean, it's just amazing.
Oh yeah. I mean, and a lot of them live, right here in our area, or in, somewhere in the southeast, and work on these things as some of them as hobbies, and some of them as their full-time job. I mean, Buddy Lee, who I know well and have videos on my channel with, who did Encores, he's a great example of that. He was, what wasn't doing this full time while he was, starting off plant breeding.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, like you said, how many Encores? Are they all?
There's 33,
Yeah.
and plus he has a lot of the other plants that are in the Southern Living Plant Collection.
Yeah.
So it's just it's fun, and all of them from whatever their company they're breeding plants for.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really neat. So what would you say? Because growing in the South has its own unique set of challenges. What would you say are some of the things that are most unique to growing plants in the South, maybe that our folks in colder climates don't have to, maybe they don't even understand, or they don't, like what are some unique things of growing in the South that we have to deal with, and how do you handle those?
Right. Well, the Southeast gets a lot of rainfall. And so from, Mobile, Alabama up to central Virginia, we get from 45 to 60 inches of rain a year. And so, and a good portion of us have clay soil. So this pocket from maybe Richmond, Virginia down to central Georgia and into Alabama has this red clay. And so you combine that red clay with 50 inches of rain in a year, plants don't necessarily.
Makes it for a fun growing environment, doesn't it?
Right. So everything has to be raised up a little bit. And so we just have to think through that. Well, of course, we get, leaf spot issues and, root rot issues and things like that. If we don't mountain the plants up, our plants need air movement. A lot of them need more air movement because the humidity can be an issue with, all kinds of leaf-borne issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do this. Okay, if you had to have only one plant in your garden, and it can be a species. It doesn't have to be like one particular variety, but what would you have in your garden?
Ooh, that's the hardest question I'm going to get. That's the difficult thing. I probably am going to go with camellias.
See, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I probably will go with camellias and all things camellias. And, I've got this, and I've got this Sweet 16 competition. Do you know about this? Okay, yeah, Bree Arthur and I have this Sweet 16 competition going on for camellias right now, where she picked 8 and I picked 8 varieties.
Yeah.
So, yes, all things camellias.
All right, so
Yes.
what would be one plant that you would wish you could grow, but you can't due to where we are?
Ooh, rhododendrons are tough. Big leaf rhododendrons are tough down in the flat part of our state.
Yeah.
And so, I do love them. Of course, lilacs. I mean, we have a few lilacs that we can grow here, but we don't have, and I know people that move from the north really miss them when they come to the south, because we have serious problems on lilacs. Yeah. Sometimes you can plant them and they get smaller every year, but you can enjoy them for a couple of years. But we do have a couple varieties that are more heat tolerant.
Gotcha. Okay, so what's one plant you would never grow? Like you're just like, not gonna do it.
Yeah, Bradford pears are definitely the, we had this conversation earlier about, that this thing we've unleashed, the calorie pear is perhaps of all the noxious weeds that we've released into the woods in the southeast, I think that the calorie pear may be the worst.
And why is that?
It was, Bradford pears were supposed to be sterile, but then other pears were introduced that ended up allowing it to seed itself, to produce seed. And so now they're coming up in the woods.
Right.
And on my drive here from Raleigh to Charlotte today, they were everywhere in the woods coming up. They have thorns about 2 inches long on them. And so, they're good for flat tires on tractors and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not good. Yes, absolutely. So let's see. What do you miss about having a garden center? Or do you miss having a garden center?
Ooh, that's a good question too. That's a good question
That's
too.
a loaded question, isn't it?
It is. I do miss some of the interaction that I get with people. Live Q&As, even like the one we're doing right now, I really enjoy. I've had a terrible time with because I was making public appearances before COVID, and the webinar thing is just not for me. I prefer for me, when I go and give a talk, I'll talk for 30 minutes, and then I actually want the crowd to tell me, or the folks there, I want to answer their questions.
Sure.
They got gardening questions, tell me what they are. I'm very comfortable in that environment because of the amount of time I spent in a retail garden center.
Oh yeah, because you get hammered with all sorts of questions.
Oh yeah, and they can ask the same question in 2 different ways. And it seemed like a different question.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right.
So, okay, so going back now, let's kind of hit YouTube. So when did you start doing YouTube? Like when did you launch your channel?
It's maybe 3.5 years now,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I put up, all I was really doing was shooting videos for my garden center, similar to what you're doing.
Yep.
And so I wasn't really advertising my garden center. I was more making individual plant variety videos where if somebody bought something from me, I could say, hey, I got a video for this if you want to.
Absolutely.
And then for whatever reason, people started watching them. 950 videos later.
Yeah, because they're so informative though.
Right.
Like I said, like when Jerry and I,
Right.
if we have a new plant,
Right.
that we want to know something about, we go to Jim. Oh,
Right.
I know Jim's got a video, so let's find out.
Right.
Is this a good plant for us?
Right. Yeah, I tend to
thing.
do. Yeah, I tend to do nuts and bolts. I do nuts and bolts videos. They're very basic. What you do, when, and how to do it on an individual plant.
Yeah.
They're not the biggest videos on YouTube by any stretch of the imagination. But I want somebody that's sitting at a Home Depot on Saturday trying to figure out whether or not that soft caress mahonia is for them.
Right.
To have a
great.
place to,
Absolutely.
have a short video for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's been with YouTube, because we're relatively new to YouTube, right? Within the last year or so. What's been a big challenge for you with YouTube? Whether it's technical issues,
Right.
or just it's just a whole different, because we've talked about this a little bit before, it's just a whole different world when you enter into YouTube. It's just a little
Right. Right. Right.
little different.
Yeah. Well, I think the challenge sometimes is just being motivated to, you go like anything else in life. You go through ups and downs. There's days where I turn on the camera and I just start firing away, and it's no problem whatsoever. And then the next day, I turn on the camera and go, whoa, this isn't the day that Jim should be talking to the camera. My brain is just not firing properly, and it's just not. This is not it.
Yes.
Put the camera away, Jim. Just go edit or do something else. And so I think that's it more than anything else. Is it the on-demand part of it, and being on right when that camera comes on at times is difficult. The technical part I love. I actually,
Okay.
that married 2 things for me: my long time horticulture experience with the fact that I like tech.
Gotcha.
So those 2 things came together perfect for me. So yeah, sometimes I like the other side of the camera almost better.
Yeah. No, I can understand that, because it is hard to, because you have to be on, and some days I'm just like, Jerry, don't want to see a camera.
Yeah.
Not happening today.
Right. Yeah. That's it. Other than that, the rest has been great. I'm always surprised, that people like them.
Right.
I mean, more than anything, it's just, I made this, I'm happy that, people are engaging with it and liking it. And then I love the conversation that takes off between people where they're helping one another.
Yeah. That's
Too,
fun.
down in the bottom. That's where you like, oh, okay, I know why I'm doing this now, because people are,
Sure.
they're getting something out of this.
Absolutely. And then when you get that feedback of people that say what you're doing is really helpful and beneficial,
Right.
then because sometimes this can be one-sided, because here we are, we're just basically in our backyard at the nursery, and you don't realize how much that goes out. So it's nice to have that good feedback from people to say whether A, that's helpful, or not so much.
Right. And in last year with COVID, there were so many people that were new to gardening.
Yes.
And so I think YouTube was a big help to them. I'm sure bloggers and Instagram and all these things were helpful to people who found themselves at home
Yes.
with an opportunity to garden and didn't have the knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see. Anything else? Anything else you want to cover? What else you want to talk about?
Well, tell me about you guys. I mean, how have Jenny and Jerry come to end up on YouTube? And
Yeah, it's kind of very much, our story is very similar to yours, where you were given information about the plant per se, because we are such an isolated garden center. We're not on the main road by any stretch of the imagination. So that was when the nursery was beginning, that was our way to reach out to our customers to say, hey, this is what's at the nursery, this is what's blooming right now, this is what's going, this is what you need to be doing in your garden. So it was kind of that same basis that you had, but a little bit different. And then we were going on Facebook. That was our main source,
Right.
was Facebook. And that was really helpful. And we could really see our customers like almost an instant turnaround. Hey,
Right.
I watched your video this morning and now here I am.
Right.
And then we just moved into more like how-tos.
Right.
You know, talking about that clay soil. Well, how do you plant a shrub? Because a lot of people don't know how you plant a
Right.
shrub in clay soil. So then we just decided, you know what, if it's helpful for our local folks, then let's go ahead and take it to the next level. And so, yeah, so that was a little over a year ago
Right.
that we did it. And it's a little slow, of course, in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah,
and
it's a
then-
grind. Yeah, it's a test. It's a
It
men-
is a
it's a
test.
it's a mental test.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And then it just, you know, and then it came,
Right.
and now is what it is. And we have, you know, we're getting there. The viewers are going up, and but it has been a lot of fun. And now we're seeing a lot of people coming here because of YouTube.
Right.
Just this past weekend, we had some sweet folks from Alabama that just said, "Hey, let's
Isn't that
take a
wild?
road trip."
Yeah, isn't that wild? Yeah, isn't that wild that you
It
that you had that impact on someone? Yeah, that's kind of fun.
It is. And then it blows our mind because we're just like, you know, we're just Jenny and Jerry. Here we are in Gaston County.
Right.
Nothing really spectacular in our eyes, but we get emails constantly. Jerry has one that he got from this, they're celebrating their wedding anniversary, and they're in West Texas, and so they're going to fly out in April.
That's fun.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, that blows my mind. Like, really? But in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, it's a
yeah,
great
yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
So they're going to fly out and hang out with us for a couple of days and then drive back. So they decided to fly to us and then drive back so they can take all the plants with them.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I think for us, you know, the best part about this whole gig is meeting those people,
Right.
you know.
Right. Yeah, and I told you I was down in Florida last week, and I walked into a garden center, and you know, people recognized me, but they didn't recognize me in, you know, like a fan thing. They actually said what I wanted to hear. The main thing I wanted to hear was, "You're actually the reason I'm here shopping today." You know, that was what made my day, was that they were, you know, that's how they computed the two things. They were you know, they were working in their yard
Yeah.
because of my videos. That's what I want from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and not anything else from it.
Right,
Yeah,
right. And I think in our, like, my philosophy approach with gardening is that whether you are that self-proclaimed black thumb or someone who has been in the industry for years and years and years, that gardening is for everybody. That there shouldn't be this cloud of mystery with gardening, right? So to
Right.
put that information out there so that people
Right.
just go out there and do it. And it's okay if you kill something. I mean, have you ever killed a plant?
Yeah, I've killed more plants than all of you watching this combined together. Trust me, it's going to be a long time before you guys reach the total number of plants that I've killed.
Right. Because I think
Yeah, and I
people-
learned. That's where my learning. I learn from dead plants. I don't learn the things that are going well. I don't know.
why they're
I don't
going well.
necessarily know, but the things that died, I can figure that out.
Yeah.
That helps me actually.
It
To
does.
kill something. And the biggest thing, you know, I get asked this question all the time. I got asked last week in that great grow along thing, you know, what's my biggest, you know, advice to folks on landscaping? I'm like, just do you.
Yes.
Go to
Yeah.
botanical gardens and go to public gardens and go to public spaces. Look at your neighbors' yards. Figure out what you like, and then just do you.
Yes.
People want like a set formula for the way it should look.
Right.
You know, I'm doing 2 garden tour videos later in the week in my neighborhood. They're completely and totally different, but they're both beautiful and unique in their own way.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, that's what I like.
No, I do agree because people come in here and want a landscape and they're like, but I want it to look, you know, perfect, and I want it to look like a magazine. And I'm like, forget that. Like, what do you like? Like,
Right,
what
yeah,
is the
yeah.
look that you like? And
Right.
just to go out there and have fun. There shouldn't be that set rules of you have to do this, you
Right.
have to do that. I tell people all the time, it's your house, it's your space. Create an environment that you love.
Right. And you know, I do. And another thing I say frequently is to try to go multiple times a year to places that you shop at, rather than going. You know, yeah, everybody goes in April and then they load up on azaleas and the five things that are blooming in middle April, and
Right.
and then that's their yard. It blooms all night. I can always tell in my neighborhood in April this thing is like, and then in June it's just green.
nothing.
Yeah. You can find, especially in the South, and this is, you know, one huge benefit we have from basically zone 7B down to 9 is that we can have something in bloom 12 months out of the year.
Yeah,
You just have to shop
you do.
12 months out of the year.
You do.
Yeah.
Right. And to see the potential. So if you find a camellia, let's say you find a camellia right now, well, it's not blooming, right? But do you see the potential and go ahead and plant it?
Right.
To see beyond what you see right now. Same thing with perennials, because right now there's a lot of perennials that are dormant.
Yeah.
But can you see what it's going to be?
Yeah.
And then plan accordingly.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
I think we've kind of covered everything.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for welcoming me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming. Like,
Yeah.
truly. It's
Yeah.
an honor to have you here.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about coming for the last year since, you know, I see, hey, friends, and I'm like, those are my people. They're in North Carolina. I got to get over and see them.
There's nothing pretentious here, folks.
No.
It's
Yeah.
warts and all right here. So, you know.
Yeah, and I told you guys when I first got here, my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, and my great-great-great-grandfather are buried in Kannapolis, which is just on the other side of Charlotte from here.
Yeah.
And so my son makes 7 generations in North Carolina.
That is fantastic.
Yes, so
I love it.
Yeah.
So a lot of North Carolina love right here. But again, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
We'll do it again.
yes,
Yes,
definitely,
Absolutely.
definitely.
So guys, as always, thanks so much for gardening with Creekside. Hope you've enjoyed this. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.